Meridional Radio presenta Mirador Antártico, un espacio para conversar exclusivamente sobre temas relacionados al continente blanco desde su ciudad puerta de entrada, Punta Arenas. Conduce María Pastora Sandoval.
A Mirador Antártico. Este programa Mirador Antártico, como ustedes saben, se dedica exclusivamente a temas del continente blanco. Estamos desde el Congreso Futuro en una edición especial y vamos a conversar con Cassandra Brooks. Ella es especialista en conservación y promoción de áreas protegidas en la Antártica y es expositora del Congreso Futuro. Cassandra, thank you because you are here sharing your time and your knowledge.
It's really, really wonderful to be here. I love participating in the Futures Congress.
Oh, great. You were recently in Punta Arenas in our Congreso Futuro. And what about this experience?
Yeah, it's fantastic. For me, I love Punta Arenas because it is so close to Antarctica.
Yeah.
When you are there, you can feel the wind and the cold coming from it, and you can really feel how much Chile is connected to Antarctica. So I love being able to go there to talk to people about Antarctica.
Great, but you only were maybe 24 hours?
Not even.
No.
too short of a visit, but I've had the great privilege of visiting Punta Arenas a few times. And on my way to Antarctica or in between trips, often I would spend
I wanted to ask you about. You were in Antarctica, I think.
Yeah, so I've had the great privilege of research expeditions to Antarctica over the years, and then recently also been doing other expeditions. Explorers Club, so it was a bit of a more exploratory style expedition, and came through Punta Arenas for that one.
In Punta Arenas only, or for example, in other places?
Yeah, so when I go to the Punta Arenas, but when I go to the Ross Sea, which is on the whole other side of Antarctica, often I go through New Zealand. So, but it's to get to Antarctica than it does from Chile.
What are the difference? Because in New Zealand, it's another to did you see some differences?
Yeah, for sure. So Christchurch area and New Zealand, like Punta Arenas, you can fly or you can take a boat across. And so it's a lot further. So the boat will take 5 to 7 days instead of 2 to 3 days. The flight can be 8 hours. But yeah, I think that they have that feel of a gateway city, you know, for sure. But actually really different, and sometimes people think Antarctica must all be the same, it's just icy, but actually the Antarctic Peninsula, which is close to Chile, is very different from the Ross Sea, which is close to New Zealand. Yeah.
And what about Antarctica? When did you start to study the Antarctica? I think you think.
Absolutely, yeah. I was in graduate school doing amazing. I think once I fell into it, I really felt fish. It's a toothfish, but I think it's like a deep and in more, I learned how vulnerable it was, especially to fishing, to climate change, And so I really moved towards not just studying it, but working to try to protect this place from the human impacts that we are seeing.
Where do you come from in the United States?
Sure. So I'm right now based at the University of Colorado in Boulder, Colorado. So the middle of the United States, close to the mountains.
I think it's very different of Antarctica.
Yes, it's very different. Yeah. Although, Antarctica is a very mountainous place in some parts, although it's very flat, as well in others. But yeah, it has, there's a lot of people in Colorado who study Antarctica because I don't know, but there's a lot of people who study ice and climate and those types of things where I am.
As in Antarctica, now there are someone.
Yes, that's right. So the Ross Sea, Antarctica, alongside my husband, actually, that's how we met, and alongside together to work on that. And it was a multi-year effort. We had to get all these countries to agree to protect it, and it was in 20. This Ross Sea is the world's largest marine protected area, and it's in Antarctica, which is really cool. And then there are is actually leading on a proposal to protect the Antarctic Peninsula. And this place, the peninsula, is very to huge populations of penguins and other seabirds, as well as seals. You have whales that come every year. It's a very important area for Antarctica, but it's the area most at risk because it has the most amount of tourism, the most happening there as well, and then climate change happening very quickly. So from my perspective, it's an area we urgently need to protect. So it's really are working together to try to protect it, but they have to get all these governments that govern the Southern Ocean to have to all agree for the protection to come into force.
And we share this area with Argentina and UK.
Prior to the signing of the Antarctic Treaty, countries staked territories, yes, and the peninsula was the United Kingdom and Argentina and Chile, and they have these competing claims. But under the signing of the treaty, it's everybody's. However, it's often where countries prioritize their research. It's where they have bases. So yeah.
Estamos con Cassandra Brooks. Ella es especialista en conservación y promoción de áreas protegidas en la Antártica. Ahora entrevistándola y conversando con ella y con otros expertos también, así que no se pierdan nuestra programación. Síganos en las redes sociales de Meridional, que estamos haciendo por acá. And the peninsula, I think the is near than the continent.
Risk, like at risk, or
you talk about the
human impacts. Yeah. So yes, the peninsula, I think because it's closer, right? Have the most amount of tourists going there. In fact, last season we had more than 122,000 tourists. Peninsula. We have about the same amount predicted for this year. That's a lot of people going to Antarctica. So that's a really large-scale krill fishing happening as well, and the reason for that is that it's where most of it's just that's where the krill live, so that's where a lot of the fishing is. And then it's this area, because it's this part of Antarctica, melting faster, warming faster compared to other parts of Antarctica.
And the krill is fished.
No. So yeah, right. So Antarctic krill are these small shrimp-like animals and eat. Instead, people turn them into pills, like health pills, omega-3 pills. The other thing we do to it is we grind up the krill and turn it into fish meal to feed salmon and pigs. Something about the krill skeleton and body, it's not, it becomes toxic for human consumption. So we turn it into these other products But, you know, we were fishing, I think last season it was almost 400 krill we are fishing for. And one of the problems is that we think it's competing with penguins, competing with whales. Whales were really harvested in the Southern Ocean. They're recovering in amazing numbers, but they need to eat krill. And so now what you see is the fishing industry and the whales competing together for krill. And so I think we have to figure this out.
But can they fish krill?
Yeah, so there are rules about how much krill we can take, but for the most part, there is, to my understanding, no rule to see whales, right? That would be a very good rule to have. If you see whales, you cannot fish near them. Instead, some fishing vessels will see the whales and go, there's krill there. That. In fact, for the last couple seasons, there's been times when the fishing industry accidentally caught whales in their nets, and the whales actually died, including baby humpback whales. So there is becoming a conflict between the fishing and the whales.
The protected area will.
That's right. So the protected area being proposed by Chile and Argentina, yes, it would have areas where no fishing is allowed, but it's more restricted, if that makes sense. So that would be the hope, that you really make some choices about where we can fish and where we can't fish, to try to make sure we're protecting the birds and mammals that live there and need to feed.
Are we near for have a protected area, or you mean it's difficult?
There are 27 countries that are part of the agreement that manages the waters around Antarctica, and they all. The peninsula, there are a lot of countries that support the protected area there, but but not every country has come forward to support it, and so I think we will get there eventually. It's just. And even the proposal in the Ross Sea that was protected, it took a long time to get agreement. So I think we will get there, but it's almost like we need to get there faster.
And we, the citizens, the people, the common people, in Spanish we say walking people on the street, common people, yeah. We do about it?
Sure. So I think there's actually a lot that people can do, and incredibly in Chile, I think especially in Punta Arenas, you're very aware of Antarctica, whereas, you know, other places in the world, people aren't thinking about it. But a lot about the Antarctic wildlife and the need to protect it, but it's also that our survival is tied to Antarctica. Antarctica is this area that's like the beating heart of. It stores our fresh water, it regulates sea level, and it regulates our climate. It actually stores heat and carbon, essentially buffering the impacts of climate change. So it's this place that actually is critically important to all of us. So I think for people, the more they can learn about Antarctica, tell other people about it, and then also the things of like reducing global greenhouse gas emissions. Antarctica is really in trouble if we don't, as a global community, reduce our, carbon emissions. And that's important for our survival too. And so the more we can do at home and our cities and our countries to live more sustainably.
Antarctica was melting. I remember a friend went to Antarctica in summer, and she said, "Oh."
Especially that peninsula region, you are having massive, glaciers retreating, ice shelves collapsing. You just hear this constant thunder of the ice collapsing. And indeed, people who have been studying Antarctica much longer than glacier. That glacier used to come out, 4 more kilometers, and now in the last, 20 years, it's retreated. So you are seeing these big reductions in ice, right? Especially in that peninsula. Antarctica staying cold that are like resisting a bit to some of the melting. In the Weddell Sea, you have that, which is next to the peninsula. In the Ross Sea, you have is warming and melting and changing very dramatically.
Cassandra, if you come back to Punta Arenas, please visit us in the radio, or I don't know if so pressured about it.
Yeah, I would love that. That would be really fun I definitely want to come back to Punta Arenas, so I'd love to connect.
So thank you very much for this interview, and I hope you have success with all this.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me and for sharing these stories.
Thank you. Bueno, nosotros nos despedimos de Mirador Antártico desde el Congreso Futuro. Estamos en una edición especial. Ella es especialista en conservación y promoción de áreas protegidas en la Antártica, expositora del Congreso Futuro, que estuvo también en el Congreso Futuro de Punta Arenas y ha estado también exponiendo en el Congreso Futuro que se está al día de todos los temas de la Antártica. Recuerden que pueden encontrarnos en Spotify, en YouTube, en el YouTube de Meridional Radio, en la sección podcast dice Mirador Antártico. Encontrar. Y también les recuerdo que estamos en Spotify y en el sitio web, en nuestro sitio web, cienciaenmagallanes.cl. Gracias por sintonizarnos, que estén muy bien y nos encontramos de lunes, perdón, no de lunes a viernes, los miércoles a las 17 horas hablamos exclusivamente de la Antártica en Mirador Antártico. Chao.
Meridional Radio presentó Mirador Antártico, un espacio para conversar exclusivamente sobre temas relacionados al continente blanco desde su ciudad puerta de entrada, Punta Arenas. Conduce María Pastora Sandoval.